I have a question for you. Who can benefit from life coaching? If you ask Audrey or me, our answer is everyone. When I first learned about life coaching many years ago, it was within the business world, with corporate leaders having executive coaches. Over time, however, life coaching has expanded to offer its benefits to a much broader audience. Welcome back to all our returning listeners, and a warm welcome to those joining us for the first time. This is the Educators Going Global podcast. I'm David, and alongside my co-host Audrey, we bring you insights from nearly 50 years of combined experience teaching overseas, sharing the latest in international education to help you stay informed and inspired. Audrey and I felt that, as soon-to-be or current international educators, you would benefit from a show showing how valuable life coaching can be for you. Thankfully, here at Educators Going Global, we have a resident life coach in Audrey Forgeron. You might be thinking that you're expecting another show on recruiting, finances, or trends in international education. To that I say, give this episode a listen. Not only will you learn how life coaching works, it is easily accessible and can be very rewarding, but also you get to spend some time with my friend Audrey as I interview her. Thankfully, you've already picked up from previous shows just how thoughtful, empathetic, fair-minded, and smart Audrey is. Like everything she does in life, Audrey went all in to pivot from teaching to become a life coach. And guess who she is focusing her practice on? Yes, you, international educators. In this episode, Audrey answers our guiding questions. What is life coaching? What is Audrey's approach? What services does she offer? And how is all of this connected with international education? This is where I usually say, check out our show notes to learn more about the guest. But in this case, you will learn much more about Audrey through this interview than from her written bio. Get ready to learn how life coaching for international educators makes so much sense. And get ready to see Audrey not just as a podcast host, but as a human being, with the life experiences, skills, beautiful soul, and wisdom that come together to help her clients thrive. Well, hello, Miss Audrey, and I'm saying Miss Audrey because I want to honor where I am. I'm in Vietnam, where we use that term, Mr. or Miss. Where in the world are you?
I'm in Kathmandu in a section called Lalitpur, which is hoppin'. It's chaotic and fun. Right now, the pollution's a little high, so that's kind of a problem, but mostly the blue filter in my house keeps things at a good level, so I'm all good.
So part of overseas life there, that you adapt and make the most of your situation. So do you have a going global story for our listeners?
It just so happens that I do. I want to talk a little bit about, as you said, being in an international environment like this can lead to interesting opportunities. And what happened first for me here was in Kathmandu, I wasn't meeting people. And so I was sort of looking for a way to start some networking. And so I joined a workout group at the American Club, which is good because it gets me out of the house and pumping my heart there for a couple days a week. Through that, I met a woman from Indonesia who said, "Hey, are you in the ladies' lunch group?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not." And so she said, "I'm going to add you." So this is a WhatsApp group of ladies who go to lunch on Tuesdays, which when you're the trailing spouse, you can take advantage of these kind of opportunities. And so I went to lunch, which was a little bit of a challenge for me. I'm actually a little bit of an introvert. So going to lunch with people I had never met was not the easiest thing for me to do. At the lunch, there were 10 ladies, from 10 different countries. And that is just, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm overseas, is for those kind of opportunities. It was just so cool. And it turns out that two of them are life coaches. And so I have now connected with those two ladies and so on. And now the group is up to 7 life coaches in Kathmandu, again, all from different countries. So we've all connected, and there aren't very many of us, but it's a start. So this group of 7 gets together once a month to share strategies, bounce ideas off each other, and practice our workshop sessions. It's a wonderful, eclectic group, and we all benefit from our collaborations. So that's my Going Global story.
And once again, our audience is hearing what an interesting place it is to be in Kathmandu at the Lincoln School. This natural built-in community, the embassy connection, and then you're connecting to an analog community there, face-to-face, and a virtual community as well, just shows you the world that we live in as international educators, or in your case, you're retired from that, but you're working as a life coach. And I just think it's so cool. All right, let's jump into life coaching. We have a couple guiding questions. We're going to start off with, what is life coaching? Boy, howdy, we hear that term so much and all these different versions. So we'll get a definition of that, unpacking. And then we want to look into, what is your approach? What services do you offer? And how is all of this connected with international education? Because there's such a strong connection, and we're going to cover that as well. All right, as we always do, we get to some smaller questions. But this, on this one, let's go right after that first guiding question. So, what is life coaching, Audrey?
Thank you for that question. People are going to see how very closely this is connected to international education. So, in defining life coaching, it's important to be able to distinguish life coaching services from therapy and from consulting. These are services where there's a lot of crossover, and they bleed into each other and blend with each other in a lot of ways. And so it's important to understand the differences. So first, I'd like to compare and contrast life coaching and therapy. The difference between life coaching and therapy is that life coaching seeks to take people who are already functioning at what we would say is sort of normal capacity and work with them towards operating at a thriving level where they are really enjoying life. They are satisfied. They're experiencing joy. They're loving life. And the difference being that a therapist seeks to look at perhaps what has led a person to a clinical diagnosis of some kind of condition or disorder that is really getting in the way of their ability to function at a so-called normal level, which a normal level can also be kind of about survival in a lot of ways, where you're not really enjoying life. You're kind of getting through it. You're doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing. You're fulfilling your role, but you're just not really thriving and enjoying life. And, as I said, feeling the satisfaction and the joy. Another way to look at it is where, if you imagine kind of a life satisfaction and performance and wellness scale that goes from -10 to +10, where 0 is kind of just functioning and able to maintain your life, but not necessarily enjoying it, but more about surviving. Therapy is designed to help people get from kind of a -10 to a surviving level, or kind of a 0 level, a basic level, whereas life coaching is designed to take people from the basic surviving level up to an optimal level of thriving and really living a life of ease and flow and enjoying and performing and being at your mental, physical, and relational best. So that's what coaching seeks to do, is to raise people up and I said it before, I'll say it again. Everybody should have a life coach. It just makes your life so much better.
And now I'm going to climb down off my soapbox to share a few more points of comparison.
In therapy, the goal is to explore past and present emotional challenges, mental health, patterns, relationships, using evidence based mental health techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, emotional processing, EMDR, and so on. The therapist provides the methods and, proposes the treatment. Often you're dealing with the past and how did I get to the point where I am today? And life coaching focuses more on the future. Therapy has the purpose of supporting emotional healing, mental health, and improving well-being. Contrast that with life coaching, where the life coach helps the client set goals, build habits, and create the future they want. And the focus is on personal or professional growth, motivation. There's can be some accountability in there and setting action steps. The methods are different because where the therapist provides the strategies with the life coaching, it's all about helping the client to uncover the answers. So you ask questions, you may offer tools, you support the client in their own goal setting, you help them set action plans, and you can have regular check ins for accountability. It's mostly future focused versus therapy that is often focused on the past. And it's more of a collaboration where the coach partners with the client and guides the client, but the client generates the answers. The client sets the agenda for the conversation. Whereas with therapy, there's a therapeutic alliance, and the therapist provides clinical support and a structured treatment. With consulting, you're bringing in an expert, where I said, the coach helps the client to uncover the answers that they already have. The consultant comes in because they're providing expert advice, they're providing solution to a specific problem based on their knowledge and experience. In life coaching, we seek to have a beginner mindset, and we don't know the answer to your problem because you're the one that knows your life, knows your values and your deeper thoughts. And we just help you to uncover them through a lot of questioning, and we support you in what you're planning to do. Versus a consultant who's going to come up with a system, a strategy, a plan, is trying to solve a defined challenge, analyzing the situation, gives recommendations, might deliver a framework or a plan. And it's pretty present focused with a consultant because they are addressing a specific problem that you brought them in to address. Whereas a life coach does not present themselves as an expert, again, because you're the expert on your life. So it's much more of a collaboration, whereas with a consultant, you're talking about expert to client. And the thing is, it's actually pretty challenging as a coach to refrain from coming up with a solution, or for even thinking about a solution, for even thinking that you know what's going on with this person. You really can't say that. And so it's so much about, like I said, keeping an open mind, being curious, questioning, and not, putting your own bias on it because you don't have their experience. The client has their experience. So life coaching is best for people who want motivation, clarity, structure, maybe some accountability around reaching goals and optimizing their life. Where consultants are for individuals or organizations needing specialized expertise or strategies, and therapy is for people needing emotional support, healing, or help managing mental health concerns. there are some differences. There are a lot of similarities, and it's important as a life coach to understand those differences. And for example, if someone really seems to be a candidate for therapy, you would refer them to therapy, particularly if it seems like they're in danger of hurting themselves, or they seem to have really challenging issues created in the past that might be part of a diagnosable mental health condition where they really should be seeking help from a therapist. So the life coach will refer the client to a therapist if it becomes clear that that's what's needed.
Just to clarify, it's okay for a person to work with a life coach and a therapist at the same time. It's just important that both the life coach and the therapist are aware that that's what's happening.
The typical outcomes from life coaching would include better habits, stronger mindset, clear goals, and momentum. From a consultant, you're going to get a plan, solution, or improved system. And with a therapist, you're looking for relief from symptoms, improved relationships, greater self-understanding. So here's an example of a person that might talk to a life coach. Somebody who's saying to themselves, I want to move careers, but I'm stuck. And the coach might help them create a plan and provide some accountability. The consultant would come in when maybe a company is saying, or a team is saying, our workflow is a mess, and the consultant designs a smoother process. Therapy might be for someone saying to themselves, I feel anxious and overwhelmed, and the therapist treats the root causes. So hopefully that'll help kind of distinguish some of the differences. All very helpful, all for slightly different purposes.
Wow, you so clearly explained that, and it really connects to my understanding of life coaching. And I really appreciate that it makes so much sense. And we're going to talk about your pivoting into life coaching next. But your whole life is a teacher and as a coach, and they're slightly different, and that you're able to combine the two in this career that you're working with your clients now. All right, just as I said, let's get into what prompted you to pivot into life coaching.
David, when I was living in Jamaica, I got an invitation over LinkedIn to connect with someone who had been an international teacher and had become a life coach. And through that conversation, I got a good insight into what life coaching is and discovered as I went through the training that life coaching just ticks so many boxes for me. I love connecting with people. Collaborating is my jam. I love to be always learning, and you learn a lot through the coaching sessions and also, of course, through the certification courses. It's all about wellness. And also, it helps me keep a toehold in the world of international education because I'm working with international educators as clients. So it just fits the whole PERMA gamut, and I love it.
And let me add one more reason why I know you are so set up as a life coach is that you also were an instructional technologist. And a part of that job title and a part of that work is being a designer. And I know in our conversations that you're helping people design their lives. And I think that's a nice approach for someone listening going, maybe I should work with a life coach. How is that person going to help me? And so one takeaway for me is, as you're saying, you're not going to be telling people what to do. You're going to help people find answers, put together plans, and make a design. And I think that really fits, again, for the many hats you've worn in your career.
Yeah, that's an excellent point because life design is one of my niches. So thanks for bringing that forward.
And we'll unpack that a little bit more in just a second. So how does one become a life coach?
Well, it's interesting because there really isn't any qualification required. anybody can hang up a shingle and say, I'm a life coach. So that's a tough piece of it. For me, it was really important to get qualified. So I have had certification through the Institute for Life Coach Training, which is certified by the International Coach Federation. And I took a 40-hour foundational course where we learned all about sort of what life coaching is and how to go about it, and did a lot of practice. I also took classes in resilience, life design, executive coaching, powerful questioning, and hours of practice time. And then I took what's called the board certification. So I am a board certified coach after taking that exam. I also want to mention that one piece of the certification is, of course, like a teaching license, you have to do ongoing certifications. And so I was sharing with David before we started this conversation that I'm going to be working on my ontological coaching learning by going to Bali. And I am actually the only participant in this workshop. So I am going to have some one-on-one learning with a wonderful man named Oliver Love, who is part of the Ontological Coaching Institute.
And I'm really looking forward to deepening my knowledge of ontological coaching and also a trip to Bali, because that's the kind of thing that can happen when you're living overseas like this.
So that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. So one of the things I've learned over the years with life coaching, like a lot of professions, is their niches, their areas of expertise. What is your niche?
Right. It's important to have a niche so that people know what you can offer. My niche, of course, is mental fitness for international educators. I've been there. I have felt the stress and anxiety and overwhelm that can happen to educators because we try to be everything for everyone and we're supportive and caring people. And so we end up giving a lot of ourselves. And the question is, who's caring for the caregiver? And I think that a lot of teachers believe that they need to go it alone, that they can handle things. And after taking the life coach training, quite frankly, one of my key takeaways was everybody should have a life coach. It's amazing. It is so wonderful to have someone who is just setting aside the time and the space and the place in their heart to fully listen to you, to support you. It's an opportunity to bounce your ideas off someone. It's just a beautiful way to spend an hour a week.
And then as for the connection with international educators,
when you talk about all the transitions that we go through, how adaptable we need to be, how resilient we need to be, and, the potential for a life design when you consider, for example, look at the profiling schools, cities, and countries tool that we came up with. That's that could be a tool that people could use in order to design their next job, and looking at what are the things that I really value and, factor those in when looking for a job.
So one thing I want to do is differentiate what you're offering then to some of the consultants we've had on the podcast who mainly help people with the nuts and bolts of recruiting and maybe a little bit on transitions, but you're a much broader umbrella in what you're covering. And I can also see, especially from the positive psychology, moving into the thriving. You're doing well. What are the next steps? Like you're talking about intentions. How does one move forward if they want to become much better at what they're doing? Do they want to try kind of a side connection, learn something new that they can add to their teaching portfolio? Do they want to become a leader, an administrator? I could see that kind of specific coaching coming in as well, right?
You're absolutely right. There's so many approaches to life coaching. Some people offer services where they are really kind of more on the consultant end of things, where they are guiding people through programs and teaching them life skills and working with them through an actual process, step-by-step process.
And the nice thing about those is that they're targeted and you can choose your focus.
And I do some of this blend of coaching and consulting, which some people call coach-sulting. I love that word. Through the workshops I run, as well as through the positive intelligence program that I offer.
Many life coaches also offer both individual and group sessions as well as workshops. Like I say, there's all kinds of ways to do life coaching. So there are 3 kind of domains that I focus on, and those are resilience for stress and burnout, managing life transitions, and life design. And I kind of blend in some ontological coaching principles as well as the positive intelligence program. And I'll explain how they all kind of come together and also how they apply to international educators.
Ontology is all about presence and about being in our bodies, embodied, as we experience life. It involves the client figuring out who they are being before they focus on doing. When we know who we really are, what our true essence is, and we align that with what we are doing, we are living with integrity. And this dovetails nicely with the positive intelligence approach, which involves spending as much of our time as possible in what they call sage mode, which is about our deeper knowing and responding through that part of ourselves rather than living on autopilot where we're all up in our heads about what's happened or what's going to happen and reacting to our mental saboteurs, those voices in our head that constantly criticize us and get in the way of our growth. Positive intelligence focuses on self-command. So the work is all about developing the ability to pay attention to what's going on with you and to learn to respond in a much more intentional way. The positive intelligence programs that I offer come with an app that you can use daily to teach yourself to become more mindful and pay more attention to situations and your feelings and what's going on and work on improving your self-command so that you can step into a life of ease and flow. When we look at the area of resilience, it's so important for teachers, especially international educators, to be resilient. And resilience is all about having the capacity to move through life's hiccups with grace and without getting dragged down, both emotionally and physically, by the difficult times that arise. And in order for that to happen, you have to be proactive. And, it's like you with your PERMA pillars, David. It's about building up your various aspects of your being so that you are better able to cope with those things that come along. And let's be honest, stuff happens. There's always going to be things that happen. And with the Resilience for Stress and Burnout program, we look at building our ability to adapt and recover from life challenges. And it's about more than just coping, it's about thriving even in the face of stress and adversity. So whatever life brings you, you come equipped with the tools to maintain balance and move forward with confidence. So the idea is to go from feeling overwhelmed, maybe having difficulty concentrating, feeling detached or cynical, tired, low energy, irritability, mood swings. Resilience can help you improve your mental health and emotional stability, navigate challenges with a sense of purpose, create a positive mindset, and develop problem-solving skills. We work on mindfulness practices, prioritizing self-care, reframing challenges, setting personal boundaries, and building a support network, which really that's all about wellness. And, we could connect that with the positive psychology that you're a big fan of, David.
Yes.
With transitions, transitions involve changes in our personal or professional lives. They often bring a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Well, look at international educators, right? Transitioning from one location to another, new job, new country that you've probably never been to before, new school, new curriculum, new colleagues, new living situation, new culture, potentially new language, all kinds of changes. And this is exciting, and it's also can be stressful and anxiety provoking. Life transitions can redefine your identity and challenge you to rethink who you are and who you want to become. And they can foster personal growth because change pushes us out of our comfort zone. They can strengthen our resilience because we learn to navigate transitions, and that builds adaptability and mental toughness. And they can enhance our emotional awareness because when we go through a transition, it helps us to connect more deeply with our values and emotions. So many things happen that, let's be honest, can be a challenge. And that's where I support people. Just having somebody that is sort of on your team as you're going through something like that is really huge. And so building up your resilience in preparation for transitions is also important, and through a transition as well. In terms of life design is an intentional process of creating a fulfilling life that reflects your deepest values, passions, and aspirations. So it goes beyond simple goal setting. It invites you to strategically shape your career, your relationships, and your personal growth into a cohesive, meaningful path. So envision a life where your decisions align with what truly matters to you. By embracing life design, you can combine reflection, action, and adaptability to create that purposeful journey. And it helps you to clarify your purpose, achieve balance, foster fulfillment, and again, build resilience. So you can see how these all can work together, can complement each other, all these different strategies, approaches, programs that I offer. As a life coach, in terms of life design, I help clients define that vision for their intentional life, help them break down large goals into achievable steps, help them overcome mental barriers and limiting beliefs, help them stay focused, adaptable, and motivated throughout the process. And it has such a strong connection to the design process. And David, you and I were both
Technology integrationists.
And so we are familiar with this whole design process where the idea is to try things, to come up with a plan and then execute it and sort of see how it goes, and to suspend judgment on it and just say, okay, well, this didn't work. Think of it as a scientific kind of experiment. Oh, well, this didn't work. Okay, what little change can I make to try to move forward from this? How can I look at my design as something that is not going to be perfect the first time and that I can keep iterating on until I get it figured out, until I've achieved that optimal life that I'm looking for? All of those fit in so beautifully with the whole idea of international education. And the clients that I've worked with have really felt that they were seen, they were supported, their ability to work through issues increased. They were more comfortable communicating and setting boundaries and working on their own wellness, moving forward through the coaching. So to me, it's the perfect blend, what I offer, and supporting international educators.
All right. So what can people expect during a life coaching session with you?
Yeah, so with one-to-one sessions, everything is individualized. At the beginning of each session, the client sets the agenda. So they talk about what is on their mind at the time. So it's highly individualized, and it's the just-in-time learning kind of idea where depending on what's going on for them during that week for that session, that's what determines what we work on. So rather than a program, it's individualized and it's flexible depending on where the client wants to go. Mostly what I'm doing is I'm asking questions for clarification and I'm listening. And then I seek to shine a light on what's really going on for the client. And through reframing, through using a different perspective, because it's so tempting for people to want to offer advice and solutions. And I seek to remain open and curious. And I'm operating under the belief that the client has the solutions. It just requires shining a light on them. And through me having a more objective focus, I can help them to reframe what's going on and to see it in a way that will uncover solutions for them. So it's a collaborative process where there's a lot of listening going on. There's a lot of perspective taking. There's a lot of reframing. And the client comes up with some field work or some practices that they're going to put in place for the next week. And I want to emphasize two things. One, the client identifies the practices, and so there's more buy-in there. They make sense to the person. They're workable. They're something that they have identified that they do believe will help them. So that's so key. And then the second thing I want to highlight here is that the bulk of coaching happens between sessions. And so clients need to really be motivated to want this change if they're going to sign up for life coaching. It's not something you would sign up for sort of haphazardly or on a whim. It's something that you really need to feel that there's something blocking you that you would like to work past and that you're really motivated to work on. So during a session, people can expect me to be really focused, to listen, and to work with them to come up with some practices they can put into place that they've identified or that we've identified collaboratively to help them move forward with what's going on.
I appreciate your honesty about the partnership, that the client is buying into it with the knowledge that he or she is going to be taking action steps, and that you're a coach, a caring, thoughtful person, yet you're going to help them stick with what they come up with. And if there's struggles along the way, you're going to be able to offer some analysis on maybe what happened. But the big picture is movement going forward, just as you said. So that's very clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned earlier that you offer group sessions and workshops. Could you please tell us more about what those are like?
I am. I'm offering some highly interactive and personalized coach-salting workshops on resilience and life design, as well as transition. So those are some workshops that I can offer to your school where participants will come out with individualized, actionable strategies that they can apply right away following the sessions.
I really appreciate that outreach as well. As you were saying just a little while ago, educators are caregivers and sometimes don't set healthy boundaries. They just keep giving. And
yeah,
I think it takes someone sometimes like yourself to come into a school setting and just tell it like it is. And I bet you could see the physical reaction of the people in the audience going, oh, wow, you're right. I don't think about that. I'm always thinking about my students. I'm thinking about my children, and I'm thinking about my partner. So that's a huge deal. So I'm hoping we'll get some schools reaching out to you. And speaking of reaching out, how can people reach out to you? How can schools reach out to you? And I think you offer like a free session to get things started. So explain more about that.
Yeah. So thanks for that. If folks want to reach out and try a free session, my website is forgeyourbestlife.com. How do you like that little play on words? And if you go to that website, you're going to see a button that says book a call. And I am so excited to work with international educators. And as I said, I love connecting, collaborating. I am holding space for any of you who are committed to making a change and who would like to reach out and give it a try. What have you got to lose?
And I can say you truly are so good with the words that you always come up with the titles for our podcast episodes. And so just a reminder, Audrey's last name is Forgeron, and that's where Forge comes from. I think it's brilliant. Yeah, I'm biased. Yeah. All right, Audrey, this as a counselor and as somewhat of a life coach, I've really enjoyed this session because I'm just checking my little list of boxes of how I would want to work if I'm working with a life coach, what I would want that person to offer me and what the focus, or rather who the focus would be on, and how to keep moving forward and to forge one's design of their life or redesign. And a lot of us don't pause to design our lives. We just kind of react to what's happening. And so I really appreciate that proactivity angle that you said from the very beginning. So what else would you like to share? Anything else?
Well, I have a life coach, and almost everyone that I have talked to who is a life coach has a life coach. So I'm just going to repeat myself again. Everyone should have a life coach. It's amazing. You feel so supported. You feel emboldened and empowered to take on blocks in your life. And as I say, move forward. It might be baby stepping, but it's forward movement and it just feels great. So thanks for having me on, David. It was really a pleasure chatting with you.
Well, this whole podcast in our Information Hub website is you. You were the one who pivoted out of teaching and said, what's next? And you life coached yourself. So what a wonderful model for our listeners. And you're talking about people going through the international education lifestyle. And then there are also the people like you and myself who are pivoting out. And that's a whole nother area for seeking out coaching. So keep that in mind, folks.
It's also a form of transition.
Yes. All right. Well, so much has been shared here. Check out Audrey's website and click that button.
Thanks, David.
Thank you for joining us today on Educators Going Global.
You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, and all the other usual suspects.
Please subscribe, like us, and leave a review on Apple and Spotify, and let your teaching friends know about us so we can grow our community.
Please reach out at educatorsgoingglobal@gmail.com and join our Facebook group, Educators Going Global, if you have ideas, comments, or wish to share a Going Global story of your own.
You can also find us on Instagram at Educators Going Global.
Please visit our website as well, www.educatorsgoingglobal.com. All our podcast episodes are on there by topic, along with blog posts, Going Global stories, and our ever-growing resource library. For now, this is Audrey
and David,
inviting you to travel,
teach,
and connect with us.